Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be transforming this black powder coated Big Betty tumbler that I got from the Tipsy Magnolia. This is my inspiration for our design today. I thought these two dressers or cabinet things were so beautiful, and I'm really excited to translate this onto our cup today. First thing we're going to want to do is prep our cup for our design work. So we're going to remove the handle just using a Phillips head screwdriver. We're going to set aside the screws and the lid, and now we're going to tape off for prep. I'm going to be taping off the top rim here where the stainless steel was exposed, being very careful to keep my tape exactly in line with the black powder coating of our cup. Normally I would not do this. I would just design all the way up and over that exposed stainless steel to the very top rim. But because I'm going to be using the black powder coating in part of our design and background color, I want to maintain it, and so that's why I'm taping off the top. Next, I'm going to tape off the prongs where the handle attaches to the tumbler, just to make sure we don't get any epoxy or paint in there. It's really important to keep these two prongs perfectly clean, otherwise you're not going to be able to screw your handle back on. Once I've taped those off, I'm going to give this a light sanding with some 220 grit sandpaper. Again, we are going to be using the black powder coating color as part of our background for this design, so we don't want to scuff it up too much or remove too much of it to then expose the stainless steel underneath, which is why I'm using a very light grit and just enough to prep the surface. Once I've sanded all of the areas we're going to be painting and designing, I'm going to clean up with some rubbing alcohol and paper towel, and now we're ready to move on to the next step. The basic layout for our design will be a V-split, so I'm going to make the V-split using some thin line masking tape. All of the masking tape that you see me using in the video that's yellow comes together in a set that I found on Amazon, and I will link it down below, as I found all the widths of tape to be very useful for this particular design. Once I've established my V-split and I feel like my lines are straight enough, I'm going to move on to making our black and white lines. Using the 1-inch masking tape that came in our set, I am going to first make sure the first line of tape that I lay down is perfectly straight. I do this using a special ruler that I got from Kelbell Customs. I will link it down below. And that just makes sure that my line is totally straight. So I'll line up the first piece of tape, and then I'll space out the next line with a small piece of tape so that the widths are all identical. And then I'll use my ruler again to draw a line with a pencil to lay my next stripe of tape. I'll repeat this process all the way through our V-split till we have a nice lineup of these beautiful lines. We should be left with something that looks like this after we've trimmed off all the excess tape. I'm also going to tape off the bottom of my tumbler using some electrical tape. Once I've got a line of tape along the bottom rim, I'm going to run that through my edge trimmer that I have on the second rung from the bottom, just to give us a nice crispy edge. We want to leave some of that tumbler exposed down there at the bottom rim so that our final coats can adhere to it to create the final seal. But everything above that tape line will be a different color and part of our design. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to mask off the remainder of my tumbler with some saran wrap and blue tape, and now we're ready to move on to the next step. Now we're going to spray paint the stripes in our V-split white using a flat white spray paint. My favorite to use is Rustoleum 2x flat white. You may need to do 2 or 3 light coats. Remember, it's better to take your time and do a few light coats than it is to do one heavy coat and have a bunch of drips and issues on your hands. We're going to let our paint completely dry to the touch. We want to make sure it is fully dry before moving on to the next step so that we don't disturb those stripes that we spent so much time doing. Once our paint is fully dry, I am going to mask off the stripes part of our V-split with some parchment paper and masking tape, and then I'm going to paint the bottom part of our V-split with this beautiful pink spray paint called Farmer's Daughter from ColorShot. Again, you may need to do 2 coats. Better to have 2 light coats with solid coverage than 1 drippy ugly coat. Despite my best efforts, I still got a little bit of drippy uglies on mine, but it's okay because it's not going to be totally visible once we put that epoxy and glitter over the top of this. Once this is fully dry to the touch, we can remove all that excess masking, including my favorite part, which was removing the tape from our stripes. So satisfying. You'll notice that I did leave that tape at the top rim still intact. We're going to need that when we put on our first coat of epoxy, so just keep that one there. I also removed my bottom tape line too soon. I should have left it on because I had to replace it anyway now at this step with the blue tape, but whatever. I've got 30 milliliters of epoxy already mixed here. I'm just using my Flynn Sisters Fast Cure to make this nice and quick. And I'm going to mix in some glitter. I'm using Chantilly from Peachy Olive Glitters today. And we just want to add enough to saturate our glitter to give us a nice sparkly coat. If we add too little, things will look too patchy. If we add too much, it will also look weird and patchy. We don't want to change the texture of our epoxy. We just want enough to where that fine glitter is going to float around and stay suspended in that epoxy to give us a quick glitter coat. Some people call this cheat glitter. Some people call this a quick coat. I don't care. I'm just adding some glitter in the epoxy that is see-through enough so that the design work that we did in paint underneath shines through, and I'm not having to do a bunch of different sections of glitter, which if you've ever worked with black and white glitter together on the same tumbler, you know it can be very frustrating and difficult. This takes away all of that frustration while still giving us just enough sparkle. Of course, if you wanted to take the hard way, you could use your pink glitter, black glitter, white glitter, and do all that by hand. But ain't nobody got time for that, okay? That was enough work laying out all the stripes and stuff. Okay, so once I got my tumbler fully coated and I've got that spread on there nice and clean, paying very close attention to those handle prongs, I'm going to hit it with my torch to pop any remaining bubbles. And then we're going to remove our tape. I remove my tape right away. I don't really set a timer or wait because I'll usually end up forgetting and I don't notice much of a difference. The only time I wait to pull my tape is when I know that bottom line has to be fully crispy and clean like on a final coat. I have a video that explains taping off the bottom of your tumblers and why, and I'll link that tutorial down below in the description box. Now that my tumbler is fully dry to the touch, we're ready to add on our UV DTF decals. These Floral UV DTF decals that I'm using today are from one of our element sheets that you can buy on my website, FlynnSistersSupplyShop.com. I will link it down below. And these are beautiful pink peonies that I think are perfect for this design. And I'm just layering them up along this V-split line. And I absolutely love this effect. I think this is such a fun design that you can do in a variety of colorways with different floral patterns. And I'm going to be adding more floral element sheet options just like this to the shop so that you can discover new colorways for this design template. I love it. Next, I'm going to be adding this cute little Made for More UV DTF decal. This is also available on my website. And here I'm just measuring twice, so I only have to apply it once because once it's down, it's down. There's no repositioning these, okay? And a lot of people don't recommend applying these with the hinge method, but that's the easiest way for me. So I just kind of tape one side of it to make sure that everything's straight with my ruler, and then I'll apply it from there, very carefully removing that paper backing while keeping everything nice and straight and pressing firmly to apply it. Then we'll remove the top carrier sheet and it's done. So easy to apply, so much easier than messing around with vinyl. Once we're done with that design work, we're going to apply the gold foil detail. To apply our gold foil today, I'm going to be using Wicked Stick It from WickedShimmerSupply.com. I'm going to pour just a little bit of it into a medicine cup and using an old paintbrush, I'm going to daub on just little random dots here and there. Maybe there's some parts that I didn't fill in all the way with some flowers, or I wanted to add a little gold dot here and there for some interest. That's all we're doing here, not adding a whole lot or getting carried away. Once I've got all of my adhesive applied where I want it, I'm going to use a heat gun really quick just to dry it off. I know that it's dry because it'll turn completely clear and shiny. And when I touch it, it doesn't deposit onto my hands. Once it's dry, we're going to just put our foil over the adhesive, kind of dabbing it on with our fingers here and there. And I'm not paying attention to all of the excess that's sticking up looking crazy. That's fine. Just make sure everything is pressed down pretty firmly. And then we're going to go over it all with a brush to remove all the excess foil and brush it all off the cup. So what we should be left with is just the gold spots that we applied over our adhesive. All right, and to finish, I'm just going to sign my initials on here, and now we're ready for final coats. For my final coat, I'm just going to tape off that top rim, this time leaving just a tiny bit of space between where we've painted and the exposed stainless steel. This way our final coats of epoxy will adhere to that stainless steel portion to create the final seal where it's the strongest. I also taped off those prongs again where the handle attached to, and I did not tape off the bottom because, or actually, yes, I did. I did tape off the bottom for this coat. Sorry. Anyway, once I got everything spread on there nice and smooth, I'm just going to hit it with my torch to pop any remaining bubbles. And then I do take my tape off right away. I don't really wait. I never apply such thick coats that if I were to remove the tape right away, the epoxy wouldn't run way out of control of the boundary line. If you're worried about your epoxy moving way out of control of that taped boundary line, then you should set a timer and wait for it to set up a little bit for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then you can remove your tape. I have an entire video where I talk about taping off the bottom of your tumbler and why. I'm going to link that down below in the description box. You might find it helpful. Anyway, this cup took 2 final coats before it was completely done. But once everything's beautiful and smooth and we're happy with it, we're ready to put the handle back on. It's super simple to do. If your handle does not fit back onto those prongs, there's a chance you probably got some excess epoxy on there. Not to worry, you can usually just pry that extra epoxy off with a craft knife, and you should then be able to put your handle back on. You'll also notice that this cup really only took, I think, 3 coats in total to finish, so it's not very thick. Putting the handle back on to these Stanleys, if you've applied a lot of different coats of epoxy, could be tricky, so that's why I try to avoid doing stuff like that with cups like these. Anyway, but this is how it turned out. I absolutely love this design. I think this would be so cute with like a lavender color and some lavender flowers, which I'm going to work on getting added to the shop. Maybe even some blue and yellow colors. I don't know. But I just think it's very pretty. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought in the comments. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I upload videos almost every week, or at least when I have time. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. If you love that last video, you can check out the next one here, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for more great content. You can shop our products at FlynnSistersSupplyShop.com and subscribe to our channel for new videos every week. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.